All right, we're back. The tables are turning for Ben Bergquam. He is now the man getting interviewed instead of doing the interviewing. So let's hear it. Let's hear your name, age, and what got you into politics.
Ben, B-E-N, last name's Bergquam, B-E-R-G-Q-U-A-M, 39, turning 40 in April. I feel like a young guy, but all of a sudden I'm like, man, life is going so fast, but you really appreciate it. I got involved in college. So I was kinesiology undergrad. My parents were, before that, going back, my parents were missionaries in Africa. My mom was a nurse, my dad was a pastor, and then we moved to California. It was supposed to be for 3 weeks, ended up being for 30 years. And I saw the direction California was going in college, and I didn't like it. Saw illegal aliens getting full ride scholarships at my university while I had to pay my way through. I saw the whole gay marriage thing going through, and as a Christian conservative, I was fighting against the Prop 8 bill that was out there, and just the kind of the demoralizing of our society. And so I never was a poli-sci guy. I got my undergrad in kinesiology, exercise science, and then I got my MBA, ran a fitness company for a while. But that actually, in college, led me into getting involved, actually helping run some campaigns. And I just got fed up, and I didn't see anyone fixing the problem, so I would just go out with my camera, kind of like you do, or did to start out, and just started filming and asking questions, and it was just one thing led to another. I got out of politics for a while. My life kind of spun out of control, got into drugs and alcohol, ended up being a crack addict for a few years. My wife didn't know, nobody knew, and God restored my life, restored my marriage, turned my life around, and that was in 2015. And then that was when Trump came out. And I was doing a whole nother career, and I just felt the call back into it. And so same thing, went to Berkeley, got these stitches from the lovely Antifa, the fascist, anti-fascist, and that was what the catalyst. I had to decide, is this really worth it? And I decided I'd rather me get the stitches than my daughters. And if we didn't stand up now, then what country we're going to have for our children when we grow up. And so that led me into starting a radio show on the Salem Radio Network, starting Frontline America. It started off as Frontline Radio, then that turned to Frontline America, and then ultimately now working for a network. I still run Frontline America. Now I'm the national correspondent for Real America's Voice News, and I do a show called Law and Border, and do all of this as well. So, God's plan is it's kind of coming full circle from that vision I had when I was 10 years old. Leading God's armies, whatever that meant, it's kind of too big to think about, to now seeing this is all spiritual battle. It's all connected. I mean, whether it's dealing with the border or with pro-life issues or all of the transgender garbage we're dealing with now, it's all good versus evil, and that's really my focus. God, family, country.
It's really crazy to see how God works in people's lives, especially your life. It's crazy to see how you went down that road and have able to recover, and now look at where you are today.
Yeah.
The things that you've been able to do, and I guess your journey in politics so far, to you, what are the biggest issues you've uncovered, and what do you think is the biggest issue surrounding America today?
Well, first, I'll say this. No matter what you've done in your life, God can still restore you. And no matter how bad you think it is, again, I was a crack addict. I was either going to end up in prison or dead, was the only view I had. Thank God I had a wife and a family that loved me. And when I finally came clean to them, and that was the key, I kept praying that God would take it away from me, but that my wife wouldn't have to find out. Yeah. And it was the night that I was honest with my wife, God broke the chains and set me free, and literally within 2 weeks set me back on the path that he had for me. So it's up to you. No matter where you're at, God can save, God can redeem you and restore you, and every one of us have a purpose in our life. To me, the biggest thing, and why we're here today, is because we took God out of our society. This is a Judeo-Christian country that was founded on founding fathers that believed that everything we have, all of the freedoms we have, aren't man-given, aren't government-given, they're God-given. And as soon as we took that out, in the 1960s, you go back to the Great Society with Lyndon B. Johnson, where we said, you don't need a father in the household and you don't need God anymore, the government will take over. It's the same time that we took God out of schools and prayer out of schools, and now you wonder why we have these mass shootings, why you wonder why we have no respect for the rule of law, or for parents for that matter. And we have broken homes all over the place. So the first thing we have to do is bring God back into our society. And then it's pretty simple stuff. you support the rule of law. You discipline as a parent. You have to discipline your children so they grow up right. We need to discipline our children. And that goes through schools, that goes through everything. And then it goes up from there. So you start with the foundation of God. You make strong families, one husband, one wife with their children, keep homes from breaking up, and teach your children discipline. Teach them respect for themselves first, fear of the Lord, fear of the Lord first, respect for themselves, respect for their parents, and then to respect others, and everything else comes out of that. You know, the border issue, all of these things they're collapsing because we have a collapsing foundation in this country. And, you know, my personal priorities right now, the two biggest issues are election integrity and border security, but again, it all falls under that foundation of God out of our society. So we need that first, everything else comes out of that.
And what do you think the resolution is to bringing God back into society?
Well, it's each one of us shining our light. Reject the premise that you know, they always say, oh, don't talk about religion and politics. To me, those are the two things you have to talk about. Yeah. If it offends somebody, it's probably the right thing to be doing. It also, I learned this a few years ago. If you're afraid to do something, it's probably the thing you're supposed to be doing. God, the times that God used, and I know this is for you too. You know, there are times where you go out to places, you're like, oh man, this is gonna be hairy. I got some crazy, you know, speaking of hairy women coming after me at these women marches. There's that time where God says, you feel that prompt. First you say, Lord, what do you want to do with my life? And God will reveal that to you. If you honestly mean it, say, I don't know, you know, I really want to know. And it's usually just a simple thing, but it's oftentimes scary. And that first step leads to the second step, leads to the third step. And before you know it, you're standing here with us and you're doing whatever God called you to do. Each one of us have a part to play in this. So it's taking that first step and again, doing whatever that is. Might not be what God has for me. It might not be what God has for you, but each one of us have a part to play.
Amen. To turn the tables a little bit now, we ask everyone this question. I'm interested to see what you have to say. Is there any unpopular opinion or something you would see maybe controversial, even with the right, that you have that you would like to share?
Well, I think for really the whole LGBT mark, you know, this is one of those things. We have to be willing to say, even if it's not popular, if it's not politically correct, this is one of, again, took God out of society. We accepted the premise of political correctness. We shouldn't worry about what people think, whether we're going to be canceled or not. If you believe in it, you should stand up for it. I believe marriage is between a man and a woman, and that's all it ever should be. I believe that you know, God made man, Adam and Eve, and you don't get to change that, and we shouldn't be afraid to say that. And in particular in the church, this is my biggest concern, is what's happening in the church. The root of evil and all of this is coming from a godless church, and so it's time for the churches to stand up and take back their rightful place in society, that as the foundation of this nation, and call out what needs to be called out. Outside of that, I mean, I'm pretty much in line as a Christian conservative. We need a wall on the border. We need strong energy independence. I think climate change is an absolute hoax. The climate changes, but this religion of climate change is a disaster for the world. You know, that might be controversial to the left, but to me on the right, I feel like that's something in line with what we believe.
All right, well, awesome. Last question for you. Here at Go USA, this is the first ever political rating system. The same way your credit score gets judged and the same way movies get judged, we believe we should be holding politicians accountable, giving them a score based off whether or not they're working for the Constitution and for the American people. So, for instance, late trimester abortions, only like 10% of Americans support, yet almost half the politicians support it. So they're clearly working against the American people. Therefore, they would get a negative opportunity score. Do you think that this is a system that America should support?
I love the opportunity score. I love what you guys are doing. I've seen, it's been a year ago, I think somebody brought it out. And so, no, I love it. I think we need to do it more, and we need to broadcast it and really hold them accountable to the score.
Well, you heard it here first, guys. Ben Bergquam from America's Voice supports Go USA, so you should too. You can learn more about Go USA at the link in the bio, and check out all of the social medias in the description below. Thank you guys for watching.